Since I've been at Grammarly, we've hired, I think, 6 roles on the legal team, and the most effective introductions were through someone that I knew and trusted. And that requires someone going on to LinkedIn and seeing who they might know in common with the hiring manager, and then asking that person, do you actually really know this person? Did you work with them? Can you please make an introduction for me? And when someone that I trust introduced me to someone they trust, that connection is already there. That said, I have had any dozens and dozens of people reach out to me just cold on LinkedIn. And that works to some extent for sure, especially if you have something in common with the person. I think the most important thing to remember when you do that is to have humility and recognize that, especially if there's an open role that you're interested in, you might be one of a dozen people reaching out to the hiring manager, or even sometimes more, to say, hey, do you have 30 minutes to talk with me about what culture is like at your company or things like that? If you think about the fact that you might be one of a dozen people asking for 30 minutes of a hiring manager's time, you quickly realize, oh gosh, that's just really not sustainable for the person who actually has to get their job done as well as hire for this role. So I would say be humble, make sure you load your own resume into the system, and then reach out to the person. Don't ask the general counsel to please put your resume in the system. The general counsel doesn't have time to do that, especially if 30 other people have asked them to do that as well. So it's just having humility and putting yourselves in the shoes of the hiring manager, and then really pitching yourself for that company really matters. The person that you reach out to really wants to know that you want to be at their company, not that you're just looking for any job.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in here. I completely agree with everything Jennifer said. And I am a huge proponent of cold outreaches via LinkedIn. Every single interview I have received, it is because of a LinkedIn cold reach out. So I think that they can be very effective. But to Jennifer's point, you have to be humble. And I never ask the hiring manager to do anything. My goal is to elevate my profile. My goal is to show that I'm coming in, ready and excited to be a part of that company. And so what I usually include in my LinkedIn outreach is my name, where I'm currently working, how I learned about the post, 1 to 2 sentences about how my experience matches and exceeds that of the role, and why that company, again, to Jennifer's point, why that company specifically, and then a thank you. And then I always, always, always attach not just a resume, but a deal sheet. And I am very bullish on deal sheets. People might think, I think this one could be an interesting thing. There might be counterpoints here, but I feel like a deal sheet, both as a transactional lawyer and a litigator, really shows that you're a heavyweight, especially if you are, again, a fifth year or below. It really shows that you're a heavyweight. It shows the types of deals that you've been a part of, and it other people aren't submitting deal sheets. And so it allows for them to say, wow, this person is, is bringing something different to the table. And so the goal is not to ask for the 30 minutes. It's literally just to elevate your profile. And every time they have responded back by saying, thank you, this was a great email, I'm gonna put you through to the recruiter and get you started in the process. And then I speak to them later on in the hiring process. So that is kind of, I think, a different take on reaching out with cold LinkedIn messages.
Sumeet, anything you want to add there in terms of standing out?
Yeah, I think that when you are attempting to go in-house in any role, one, you're going to speak. If you're going for the GC position, you're going to talk to the CEO or the business side. And then if you're going for an in-house role, you're going to talk to whether it's the GC or some other higher up within the legal department. I do think a critical component, especially if you're talking to the CEO, is not to go in there and just talk law, right? I think that there's a lot of individuals on the street that can jump in and talk about the specific area of law that you're getting into, lending, maybe it's crypto, maybe it's privacy, but having them understand that you're here for the business and that you understand the business side of things, that you're here to try to push the envelope to get the business over length, especially if you're in tech. you know that you're playing in the gray space, for them to really digest the fact that this person is going to get it. And that's got all kinds of connotations to it, but they're really going to get it and be in the room and actually push things forward and not be the roadblock for us launching, or unless it's absolutely necessary, or they're not going to have the business additional component to get you to success. It's really important. So I think from the in-house side, always having in the back of everything you're saying that you really understand the business and you're ready to pivot and accelerate as the business needs you to.
I would add one thing to that, which is you have to understand the business absolutely, and you have to understand the problems that they might be having within that business. So a couple of roles ago, my first in-house role actually, when I went over to Loon, which was one of the Alphabet moonshot companies, I remember shortly after I joined, we had an executive offsite, and I think I hadn't even been there maybe a full week when we had this executive offsite, but I was talking with one of the executive team members, and he said to me, "Jennifer, do you know how I want to tell you what it was that made us decide to hire you?" And I said, "Oh, I want to know this." And he said, "Well, you were the only candidate that made me believe you cared about my business problems and that you were there to help me solve those business problems." And that has stuck with me for until now. And I think it's so right. And I coach folks all the time. You have to Sumeet's point, you have to know the business, you have to do your research, and you have to have a view on how you might actually help them solve their problems. You need to come with opinions. If you ask good questions about the business, you'd say, well, here's how I would handle that if I were here. That shows you've really done your research and that you really want to be at that company and solving those problems.
As somebody that's now sat in rooms where we are determining who's going to be, whether it's our next CMO or a very high level position, you don't want that person to agree with everything you say, because then what are they adding into the element of the room? Like, what is going to be the reason that they're there if they're just going to say yes to everything you're stating? So I think as the attorney, for you to be able to say respectfully, you know what, let me push back on that, or have you guys thought about it like this, is actually where they're going to see, oh man, great thought, value add, bring that person in. So my only addition there is it's okay to have some disagreement with the people in the room when you're going through the interview process.